Well, first of all, we all really enjoyed the book. We went around and said what was our favorite part of the book and our favorite stories, and a lot of it was fun just to hear everyone's things, what resonated and what have you. And also, I asked everyone at the end, I said, so did this book club and adventure club section sound like familiar? So everyone here is in nature club, and most of us are also in book club. And part of the reason that we did that is I've been inspired by your Instagram post all those years ago. So thank you. It was really fun to read the book and say, yes, this is part of why it's like we're living some of this out, which is really awesome. So
so awesome. I love it.
we were talking about how, well, Becky had said she wished she had this when she started 14 years ago, homeschooling 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of, we all were commenting that the idea of like focusing on relationship and building up small, like, so starting small and then literally when they're small, but also grow and having the adventures grow with them. And that led to one of our questions about, okay, well, what if you're starting with a tween or a teen?
Yeah.
And, a walk into just around the block isn't so exciting anymore. Where do you start?
I think for teens, there's a couple different things. I actually get this question a lot. So I think for if you have like a teen that's reluctant to adventure with you at all because it's new and they're like, what are we doing? Like, this is so dumb, which can happen because it's new and it can feel uncomfortable and that kind of closeness they might not be used to. I think it's a great opportunity to let them invite a friend. And I know some parents think, oh, well, if a friend comes, then it doesn't count, it's not the same togetherness. But if that's the way that you can draw them in, then I say go for it. If it helps them feel more comfortable and feel like they are excited about going on an adventure with you because their friend comes along, well, that's wonderful. Because of course, the adventure really isn't the goal. The adventure is the vehicle. The goal is connection. And so if you can if it makes them feel more excited and more invested because they can invite a friend along, well, that's a wonderful opportunity for you to connect with them and their friend. And relationships of all kinds are of value. So I think that's a great way to bring your child into the adventure if they're reluctant. If they're okay with doing it with you without having a friend along, but they don't want to do that, walk around the block or the nature center, I think it's just really great to just say, well, what are the things you'd be interested in doing? And really give them a voice in the planning and a voice in the process. Sometimes they might want to try something more difficult that maybe even will be a challenge for you. Like, I really want to go rock climbing, Mom. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, that sounds terrifying. Or how will we even do that? So letting them make some suggestions, and maybe there are things that aren't like outdoors, that aren't naturey, because maybe they want to try taking, pottery class with you, or training for some kind of race because they're athletic. And you might actually, I feel like with teens, we sometimes have to step up more and do something that's outside of our comfort zone. When they're little, they're just so much more open to our suggestions and they're kind of just easier to please. But when they're bigger, sometimes we have to be the ones to, if we really want to connect with them, we have to be the ones to say, okay, I will do things that are outside of my comfort zone for you. And we don't have to say that to them, but that's where we have to get to in our heart and mentally, because we know that the connection is harder when they're bigger. So we have to be willing to do things that maybe take more time, require more planning, require more of us being brave, or doing something that we wouldn't normally choose because we know it's something that will light them up. So some of the things, like for my family, just I have 3 teens now, just letting them be the ones to offer suggestions, just giving them a voice is really helpful. And they are, I often find, more willing to do the adventures that are things that I love when I'm willing to also do the things that they love.
Yeah. What about times of when you're discouraged because all you get is pushback and like attitude when you suggest an adventure, something that you know actually that I guess you may not always know this, but usually they end up having a good time once they're doing it. But there's a lot you can get discouraged because there's pushback. Any thoughts on that one?
Well, I think I mean, there's a couple ways to handle it. Sometimes I will say, I know that you guys don't want to go right now. I totally get that. But I also know, based on our past experiences, you guys are going to have a good time once we get out there. And so I'm just going to ask you to trust me and to show up even though you don't feel like it right now, because it's going to be better. And then mentally and emotionally, like, steel myself to not be like, listen, guys, I do all this for you and you better have a good attitude. To not respond that way, even though that might be how I feel on the inside. And to just sort of push past their negativity and their reluctance, knowing that it's going to be worth it in the end. And then other times there might be an incentive. I am totally not opposed to being like, hey, I think we all really need to get out. We all need to do something. We need to keep the pace. Let's go out and do this thing. And then afterwards we'll stop for ice cream or whatever. And sometimes just that, carrot, it helps. And again, like I said, the adventure isn't the end goal. The connection is. So whatever we have to get to that end goal is okay. I don't ever want it to be like, this is something that I'm coming down with an iron fist, because it's not like, you have to learn your times tables to succeed in life. Like, this is an adventure. Like, it's not like learning to read or brushing your teeth every day. I mean, I want it to be fun. I want it to be enjoyable. So I will push, but I try to push gently. And sometimes I may push gently, but offer some sort of thing at the end that makes them feel more excited to step into it. But a lot of times, I mean, I think that just being a parent is being willing to put up with people's bad attitudes, because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, with 4 kids and then me, and then if my husband's along too, I mean, out of that, somebody is always going to be grumpy or frustrated or tired or bored or hungry or whatever. Like, very seldom that all 6 of us all are pumped at the same time. So sometimes we just have to say, well, you know what? They're grumpy, but it's okay. They'll snap out of it eventually.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like, that's just reality of,
Yep.
Of dealing with everybody's emotions, especially as your kids become teens. Like, those of you who have teens, like, the hormones are crazy. And then I'm hormonal, so it's like it's a disaster sometimes. There's a lot of hormones. That's when we are like, okay, we gotta, we definitely have to stop for ice cream or something. Like, it's not just them that need it all the time. Sometimes it's me.
Yep.
Yeah, so true.
One of the other questions we have was, have you ever pushed too far outside of the comfort zone for one of your kids and you had to pull back?
Let me think. I mean, maybe in the moment, there were times where it felt hard. Like, I think like a really long hike where things were, they were really hot. Especially my youngest, he struggles the most at this point. And I think part of that is just because when, you know, my older kids were 9, like we weren't going on as difficult of hikes or adventures because like they were younger. But now like they can kind of set the tone, and they're teenagers, and he has been keeping up as best as he could his whole life. But now, you know, they're 16 and 14, and he's 9, and they're like racing ahead, and they want to go on harder hikes and push more, and he's like, can't, you know, like this isn't that much fun. So there's definitely times I think for him where we've pushed hard and it's been hard, and I have to slow down and work with him and walk next to him and encourage him and say, we can do this. Here's a piece of chocolate. How about a piece of gum? Have some more water. Yes, I'll hold your hand. Yes, you can hold the back of my backpack and I'll drag you up the hill. None of which, to be perfectly honest, I really enjoy doing. I'd rather if he was just like, let's go, I'm going to keep up with my brothers. But sometimes he doesn't. And if I hopefully in those moments have the wherewithal and the empathy to understand, like, oh yeah, this is hard for him. He's little. Even though he's not 3 anymore, he's still little, and it's hard. But generally in those moments, we're already in the middle of it, and we just have to keep going. It may take a long time, and there may be some tears along the way, but we stop, we pray. We pray a lot sometimes to get through. And then in the end, we can look back and say, okay, we did it. It was hard and it wasn't our favorite. And he'll remind me that I don't like that hike, but definitely we just have to work through it together. I think those are that's the most common situation where it feels hard for one of my kids. And I think part of that is just the nature of him being the youngest. And it's not so much that he doesn't like to hike. It's just that the hikes that we're going on right now, I feel like they're pushing him hard. So, you know, other things, it's just been like hard in the moment. Like it's freezing cold and we didn't, you know, our sleeping bags aren't warm enough, or, you know, stuff like that. That's like, it's uncomfortable and it's hard in the moment, but we can get through.
Yes, I was just thinking about your story of Yosemite, and I'm like, everything's hard when it's cold and it's wet. It's just hard.
Yeah. That is really one of our most favorite camping trips of all time, even though it was in the moment, and in several moments, it was not our favorite while it was happening.
Yeah.
How has adventuring changed during this pandemic time? You're also talking about like it's hard to get into museums right now.
Yeah.
Or we are still meeting as a book club, and we are doing our nature walks twice. We meet about twice a month for our nature group. But anyway, yeah. How has adventuring changed for you during pandemic time? Or how are some ways to continue to adventure even with the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, we started meeting again in the summer, just going to the beach. So all last spring we didn't meet because a lot of our hiking trails were closed, museums were definitely closed. And so there just wasn't really a place for us to gather. But then as soon as summer came and we could be at the beach, we started doing that. And hiking trails are open again here. We've had some closed due to fires, but not because of COVID. So we've been able to hike together. Our museums are all still closed, which is a bummer, because a lot of times actually our fall is our hottest weather. And so a lot of times in the fall, we like to go to museums because it's just too hot to hike. So this fall was hard. We were trying to plan, and we found that like all the things we usually do in the fall, we couldn't, like, because so much stuff was closed. So we were just going to the beach, and we were all actually sick of going to the beach. Ironically, I know some people don't understand that, but we were like, we just want to do something besides the beach. So it's been a challenge. I think a lot of the challenges has been for us to have a good attitude and to be like, hey, we can still meet together outside. We can still, maybe we're going to have to travel farther to some hikes that are easier for us to do when it's hot. We have to shift our attitude. We can't change our circumstances. And this is like, has been kind of my mantra for myself and for my kids. My mantra has just been that if our circumstances aren't changing, then we have to ask God to change our hearts. And so that's really been the big thing for us, is that things that we have on our schedule every fall or Christmas time, like things that we do as a group together that are canceled or changed. And it's a disappointment and a frustration, but we just have to ask God to change our hearts and to be creative and embrace all the things that we can do. So for us, I think it's probably easier because outdoor, our weather is warmer for sure than your guys'. And as you go into winter, I imagine, I've never lived in snow, so I imagine it's harder to be outdoors together and you want to do more indoor activities. But I think, it's just a matter of really trying to be as creative as possible and thinking outside the box. I wrote in the book, I had that chapter about indoor adventures, which was kind of funny for me to write because it was like, that's the thing that we do the least because we can be outside so much. So I was writing and I was like, man, I hope people aren't reading this and like, Greta, you have no idea what you're talking about. So if that's the case, I'm so sorry. I really don't know very much about real winter weather. So,
well, actually, I think in that section, one thing that stood out to me, it was helpful to remember that because I tend to think of adventures as outside or museums, or it was helpful to think of it another way.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we have to do, right? We have to really be creative right now. And we really have to think outside the box. I mean, for you guys, do you get together outdoors all year unless it's like, I don't know, -10 or something?
We sometimes get together at -10.
I was just laughing because last year it was like -30 and we went on our nature walk and we had hot chocolate and my kids thought that was the best nature club.
Man.
I'm like, really? It was so cool. Isn't that crazy? I know. It was crazy.
Nature club is easy. In fact, nature club is easy to do in the winter. It's actually easier than the spring because it can be very wet and muddy in the spring. And so thunderstorms and stuff. So we've canceled more in the spring than the winter.
That's interesting.
And the winter it's as long as you have the right clothing, it's great. And then yes, the hot chocolate is it's a lot of fun.
I mean, that's what people say. And that's one of my husband's favorite things about when he goes to Wisconsin is he's like, they're out. Like, it doesn't matter. In the winter, people are out. They're like, they're still living life. And, here, if it rains, everybody's just like, oh, we got to stay home. Californians are weather wimps. So it really appreciates how, you guys are so just dedicated and you get out there and live life. It's very admirable.
Well, but then the other things can be more difficult, like things like book club is harder to do outside in the winter.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it in November.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's a shelter that has 2 fireplaces at the end that we can, so it's outside, but hopefully we'll have some heat, but we're not sure what we're going to do in December. We might have to go to Zoom. We'll see. But but I think some of the other adventures, I like your point a lot about, shifting our attitude is sort of the key.
Yeah. I mean, and even if you did a book that's like really, if you can find a book where kind of the people in the book are going through, a difficulty, like this summer when we did a road trip and we traveled through South Dakota, and we were listening to, you know, the Little House books, and we were listening to On the Shores of Silver Lake and The Long Winter. And it was just such a great reminder of how our life is not difficult in comparison. Yes, there are things that are really inconvenient, but comparatively speaking. So I find that for me and for my kids, when we are reading stories of people who are going through real adversity, it's really a helpful reminder to have a better perspective.
Yeah. This is one I want to say. Lorraine is from Custer. We have a whole bunch of people who are in the cut, you know, a number of us have been out there, and just this summer, even a lot of us went out there, and it's about 12 hours from where we are.
Really? Oh, we loved it so much. I felt like, because we camped at Custer State Park, and it felt like real life Disneyland. It felt like Disneyland, but real. Like, it was amazing. Like the I can't remember the name of the one lake, but it's got like all these rocks around it, and you can climb.
Yeah,
through it.
Sylvan.
Yes. If you go to Disneyland, there's this place in Disneyland called Tom Sawyer. Well, it used to be called Tom Sawyer's Island. Now it's like Pirate Island or something. But they like, I felt like Walt Disney must have gone to Sylvan Lake at Custer State Park and modeled it, because it was just like so amazing, and it was real. We were all just like, this place is incredible. We were like, we have to bring our whole homeschool group. Like, it's a 2-day drive. It doesn't matter. We've got to bring them, because it was so great. Those are the kind of like big adventures that are just like, if you can achieve an adventure like that, it's just amazing. We haven't convinced everyone though to drive all the way to Custer, but we're trying.
It's quite a drive, and there's not much. Well, from Wisconsin to South Dakota, there isn't anything to see.
Oh,
And my family still lives out there, so I have to drive, make
yeah,
that drive all the time.
yeah.
But it's a
There's
beautiful.
a lot to see on the way from California. You can easily turn it into like a many day trip, because there's so much along the way. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I loved it. We really fell in love with South Dakota. We loved it a lot. Yeah.
I've talked a lot. Anyone else have something that they want to ask or say?
Yeah, I was wondering if you had anything that didn't go in the book that you're like, I should have put that in. Like an addendum.
Yeah. When we went camping with just the moms in our homeschool group, the one with the squirrel that got in the back of the car and my food and all that, that camping trip actually ended really badly. A whole bunch of kids got the stomach flu, at the end of that camping trip in the tents. The second night we woke up, I woke up to the sounds of kids barfing, and I was like, oh my gosh, what? And so there were multiple kids that were barfing in tents. So the next morning, like we've got like sick kids laying next to the fire in sleeping bags while we're cleaning out tents, and trying to get those moms home as soon as possible, and then the rest of us trying to pack up as soon as possible, because we were like sure our kids were going to get sick. I made it out with one kid throwing up on the way home, and then the rest of my kids all getting sick once we were home. So I wanted to include that whole part of it, but my editor was like, she goes, I feel like that's really, I don't know, you're encouraging everyone to adventure. Do you really want to tell them about everybody barfing? I'm like, it's such a great story. We survived. So I still kind of wish I would have fought for that a little more, that we would have included it. And then there was something else that I feel like, oh yes, okay, I have one other story. And I don't know how I forgot to include this, because it's such a perfect example. But again, it's not something everybody would understand. So maybe you guys will understand it. When I was a teenager, early teen, my parents homeschooled my brother and I, my younger brother and I. And so we my younger brother was like 13 and he wanted to start dating some girl from youth group. And my dad was like, no, you can't date when you're 13. You're too young. So he decides like he's going to convince us to think about dating in a different way. And he gets us these tapes to listen to, shows how old I am, about courtship. And we're like, courtship? What are you talking about? So we start listening to the first tape, my brother and I, my dad and mom, and it is like so over the top weird. We are just laughing. My dad's still trying to convince us, like, no, just listen a little longer. I think this is going to get good. And we're like, this is so lame, Dad. And one of the things that the guy says is you cannot let your child and the person that they're interested in go on an adventure together. They can't have any adventures because it's going to create a bond with them. And so we are laughing hysterically. We're like, oh, don't go on an adventure together. So we're totally making fun of my dad, and he shuts it down shortly after that. And we're like, he's like, I agree. So a few years later, I'm 18, and my then boy that liked me, my dad invited him. My dad knew he was interested in me. So my dad invited him on a 6-week trip to India with us. My dad and I were going to India for 6 weeks to live with a family and do mission work there. And my dad invited him to go as like the ultimate test. You like my daughter? Okay, we'll see if you're willing, how far you're willing to work for her. So Aaron came on the trip with us, and we fell in love on the adventure. And we got married a few years later. So the courtship guy was right. Adventure definitely creates connection. Right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, that's a long story. I don't know how I could have worked it out in there. I don't know how come I didn't remember when I was writing the book, but I feel like it would have really, worked with
That's a good one.
the
Yeah.
whole idea of adventure creates connection. Because clearly it does.
Also, with the other camping one, I think it's good because it took me forever to remember to bring barf bags when I was out with kids. Like that should be a necessity. Like
Yes.
anytime you road trip with kids, you have to have something.
Yes, we do now. We always have Ziploc bags and a big bag for, like we've got all the supplies. I agree. I should have fought for it.
You should have fought for it.
Yeah, sorry. I let you guys down. Sorry.
Rebecca, or anyone else? I don't know if we really asked your question about Rebecca, about with a daughter who just really loves books, but doesn't want to have an adventure other than just reading books. Did you have more?
Yes, trying to kind of get over the hump of, yes, her books are her life. It's like, come on, you got to do something else. Let's go do something else. And I mean, you talked a little bit about kind of the not enthusiastic sort of thing, but that's, I don't know, that one's a little more specific.
Is there any way that like you could take like the books that she likes to read or a book that she's into and make it like go visit a place from the book or do an activity that's in the book, like so that she still feels like you are honoring her love of reading and these specific books, and then like but getting her outside of them. I mean, that's the only way I can think of, because I relate to her. I loved reading books. That was all I wanted to do growing up, and it was like get through my schoolwork as fast as possible so I could read, but that if you could figure out some way to make those things, the activities in them or something, sort of make them come to life, that might be a way to get her outside of the book but still feel like she's doing that thing that she loves. That's all I can really think of.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, sometimes just trying to get any sort of idea out of her is,
Yeah.
But she's almost 11, so that's the standard answer, I think.
Yeah. What books does she love to read?
All of them. We only half jokingly, like, if you want her to read a book, if you just leave it sit out on a table, it will be picked up and read.
Yeah.
Any single book, anything.
Well, that means you could just pretty much just go on Google and look for activities for many, many different books. And I bet you can find something near where you live, or like I said, some kind of activity or class related to something, or say, okay, here's your challenge. Write down your 15 favorite books for me. And then I'm going to pull some ideas from those books, and we're going to figure out an adventure for these various books. And so then it's kind of like she has a say in it, but it's also requiring something of you. But I think that is really meaningful, even if she doesn't appreciate it now, she will later. She will later.
Yeah. I love that idea. And I want to know what those adventures are, Rebecca. What do you end up doing? Those sound awesome. I don't even know what they are already, but
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Well, ladies, I need to wrap it up. Is there anything that you guys would like to make sure we cover before I head off?
anyone else? No, well, yeah, thank you, Greta. This has been great. And thanks for writing the book and sharing your thoughts and your stories. And it definitely has inspired all of us and continues to remind us to get out there and, spend time with our kids in some adventurous ways.
Thanks. No, thanks so much for, like I said, for choosing my book as your book club read, and for inviting me on tonight. It's so fun. I love the chance, even though it's not in person, to still connect with you guys. It's really neat. I appreciate it a lot.
Well, us too. So thank you for scheduling this.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys later. I'm going to go finish dinner now.
Enjoy it.
Enjoy.
I'll talk to
Bye.
you later. Thanks so much. I hope I get to make it to Madison at some point and see you guys.
Yes. Let us
Great.
know if you
Yes,
come.
that'd be awesome.
Maybe not hiking in
Thank
30
you.
degrees below.
How about 30 above,
I can totally do. I could totally do that. That's
Okay.
easy. 30 below is like, whoo, that's next level. I admire it. I'll see you later.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.